Greetings and salutations, ladies and menfolk. Welcome to another episode of Game Break, a full coverage writer's endeavor where me and my crew take a break from our various creative endeavors and play some video games and check out some other people's stories and characters and creations. Coming to you today with another episode of World and Economica. Last time round, we met our main character, Yoshiharu, whatever his last name is, and got all the way to a Chinese restaurant. So, I'm curious to see just what the story is going to be from here. Is he going to become rich and famous and take over the moon, or not? Let's find out. As I opened the frosted glass door, the woman, watching the television placed near the ceiling, with her head resting in her arms, propped up on the counter, lowered her glance listlessly. While I was overcome with the urge to just shut the door and go to another store, the woman raised her voice before I got the chance. "Table for one?" The kitchen was run by the silent, stubborn, elderly husband of the family, so he never showed any signs of affection, of course. No reply came from the kitchen. Even so, it was too late to leave, so I entered the store with a heavy gait and set up camp in a corner seat. While mountains of hydrocarbons sat at the moon's poles, they still couldn't be used for luxuries such as making plastic. Come on. As a result, most of the store's equipment was made from either wood or iron. Both could be gathered on the moon and were easily decomposable by microbes when thrown away. An iron cup was placed with a clang on my tattered wooden table, which was no doubt found in a dump somewhere. I don't know, the table in the image looks pretty nice to me, but I don't know, maybe you're not sitting at that one. The woman, beaming, then poured me water from high up. The water seemed like it should splash out, but it all stayed in the now perfectly filled cup. "You showed up, you delinquent." I have no idea what voice this person's gonna be. Oh god, it's pink hair. She's gonna be regular, isn't she? Oh no. Oh, I should be prepared for this. Crab omelet over fried rice. Ooh, that sounds good. I made my order bluntly, without a proper reply. The woman was about 20 years old and had bright, healthy hair. She had been working here for a while and seemed to know a lot of the customers, so she probably lived in the area. "One crab fried!" The woman yelled cheerfully towards the kitchen. Then of all the things she could have done, she sat down across from me. Except her body was off to the side, and her vision was fixed on the TV. She seemed interested in some plot point in the drama she was watching. "I heard that actor there is in the area right now. He's going to negotiate his next title and bask in space at the same time. A beautiful actress from around here is accompanying him." "You don't say." I didn't ask, but she informed me anyway. I ended up glancing at the screen as I silently took my PC out of my bag. "He's a little too handsome, though." While that might be true, I stifled my urge to reply with a "so what" as I placed my PC on the table and switched it on. The PC was loaded up with financial information and charts of historical prices for the 4,000 stocks on the Lunar Stock Exchange. That's a lot of stocks. In order to make a profit tomorrow, I had to find my next target. "Oh, want to use our power?" I raised my glance after being asked a question and found my eyes meeting the woman's. She had beautiful almond-shaped eyes that were even brighter in color than her hair. She's gonna be a main character, or not an antagonist, hopefully, but yeah, we're gonna see a lot of her. If you get descriptions like this, you're gonna see a lot of her. She must have She must have led an easy life, I thought to myself. You're probably wrong, simply because that's your first impression. Nevertheless, it'd be helpful if I could use the restaurant's electricity. Even if I did decide to go back to that half-assed net cafe, the rates were cheaper at night. The problem was that my battery might not last until then. Did the lights go out? I silently took out my adapter and plugged it into the cord that the woman, still seated, had lazily dragged my way with her foot. As I hugged the ground in order to plug my adapter into the outlet, the woman mischievously twitched the toes in her sandals. She is going to be one of the main characters. It's inevitable. There's no way you're going to give us this type of descriptions and just have it be a one-off. Perv! Wait, what? That's what she said to me once I raised my head, but she wasn't even wearing a skirt. Okay. Naturally, I ignored it and booted up my PC. After that, the woman stopped messing with me, and the only sounds in the restaurant were the filtered voices from the television and the swinging pots in the kitchen. This was a quiet area, without much foot traffic, and it felt like time passed slowly here. The thing that made me go far out of my way to come here, other than the fact that they wouldn't report me to the cops, was the tranquility. What did you eat yesterday? Well, it was pretty tranquil until the woman suddenly asked me a question. What did what I had to eat yesterday have anything to do with you? I ignored her as I stared at my screen, but she wouldn't stop looking at me. Her face, visible from the corner of my eye, didn't make it look like she was particularly interested in the question, but she wouldn't turn away. Defeated, I raised my glance, and at that moment she grinned. Pasta, I answered, then turned back to my screen. I updated my data while I was in the cafe, so I searched for any corporate news that might affect the market in the next few days. From where? As I clicked my tongue, the woman's smile, as expected, disappeared. She didn't get mad, or stand up, though. That doesn't suit you, you know. She said this so seriously that instead of getting mad, I ended up blushing. She's treating me like a complete child. Well, you're acting like a complete ass, so... Big Bull Cafe. It was an arrogantly named place for a nearly illegal operation. You see, bulls were symbols of strong markets. For that reason, there are bronze bulls placed in front of the biggest financial districts in the world, like America's Wall Street or the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Are there any moon bulls? So for me, the place was good luck. Huh, so Siralt's handmade pasta. Siralt? Wasn't there a real skinny guy there? That guy owns the place. Owns the... I was a little heartbroken at those words. I was sure that he was some loser who worked there by the hour, but to be the owner of a store, big or small, was a fine example of a capitalist. Not only that, I was heartbroken to hear that I was eating his pasta. I mean, it was good. I taught him how to make those. The woman beamed with pride. Wait, if she taught him, then where did they know each other from? Don't tell me they used to be lovers. As I dreamed up juicy scenarios in my head, I stared vacantly at her face as she turned back to the television. So, was that lunch? Dinner? Huh? Did you eat that for lunch or dinner? I didn't have the slightest idea as to why she was asking for all these details. It was probably because of some stupid made-for-women horoscope that she watched every day. But it was something like, if you ask a boy you meet today what and where he ate for each meal yesterday, your lucky color is yellow, and your lucky word is optimism. Dude, Yoshi's an ass. Dinner. What about lunch? I had set out to click my tongue, but after being told straight-faced that it didn't suit me, I ended up holding back. The woman might have noticed this fact because she was grinning slightly. That is not a slight grin on her face right now. That is a happy, contented smile. She knows she's gotten to you. I answered her after telling her in my mind to shut up. I didn't eat it.
Really?
This time, I didn't keep myself from clicking my tongue, or from getting angry for that matter. I can't keep going high and low, back and forth. Why she wanted to know these things in such detail completely baffled me. And what do you care? Right as I turned her question around on her, a plate of fried rice hit the counter with a thud. The woman stood up and brought the plate over. Then, right as I thought that she was going to place it on the table, she kept the plate in her hand and looked down at me.
You really didn't eat anything for lunch?
As if to show her that I was trying my hardest not to click my tongue, I started to scrape my upper lip with my teeth. No, I didn't. I don't eat lunch on weekdays.
What about today?
Today is an exception, since I was driven out of the cafe at a weird time. So what? Anyways, give me my food that you're just holding there. Eating a proper lunch was something special to me, since I usually only did it on Sundays, when the Lunar Stock Exchange was closed. Eating lunch on a weekday was rare. As I glared at the woman, she heaved a small sigh and placed the plate on the table, completely unperturbed. The smell of the sweet and sour sauce whetted my appetite. My interest shifted from the now strangely annoying woman's questions to the food in front of me.
You need to eat 3 real meals a day.
The woman talked to me while standing and staring at me, digging into the fried rice.
And eat a little more neatly.
If it wasn't for the face she's giving, I would have said she just mommed him, but... Mind your own business, I muttered mentally as I piled a mountain of fried rice and crab omelet on my spoon and shoved it all in my mouth. The woman sighed and then returned listlessly to her counterside chair. What a cryptic, stupid woman. The rate this is going, they're gonna be like love interests for each other or something weird. Where is this going? I focused on my food, stuffing my stomach with such vigor that I barely had time to even sigh. Ooh, transition! Or not. After filling my stomach with fried rice, I ordered the ayu jelly, a sweet and sour gelatinous dish. It was unusual to see this dessert around here, but it was definitely delicious, if a little expensive. Since today was a cursed day, I thought that it might be just the exorcism I needed.
You've got the money, right?
The woman doubted me after I made my order, but of course I had enough money to have a regular meal. You could rent a cheap apartment for 400 mules a month, so I could live on my own pretty easily. The reason I actually couldn't was because there weren't any places a minor with no guarantor could rent. I heard that on Earth, people in my situation were sometimes able to make it happen. Unfortunately, lunar cities were only accessible via orbital elevator, and so everyone's identity was known. If I went to rent a house, they'd immediately run my fingerprints and an iris scan, and then contact my parents. Unless you are an extraterrestrial, if you're on the moon, they know who you are and where you came from. Have I ever stiffed you?
Just because you've paid in the past doesn't mean that you're sure to pay next time. And anyway, you ran away from home, right? You need to take better care of your money.
Oh, that's not going to go over well. I felt a strange sense of comfort in the fact that her lecture wasn't about my running away itself, and overall I agreed with the idea that people should take care of their money. Oh, well then. You don't have to tell me that.
Oh, really?
The woman shrugged, then carried the ayu jelly from the counter where it had just appeared. It was hard to argue with her since I was, in fact, wasting money here, but I was confident that I had more money than anyone else my age. What's more, I'd never gone on a wild spending spree before. The magic of compound interest made the world go round. If 1 mul today turned into 10 in a year, then 3 years after that it'd be 10,000. Compare that to what my dad would make in his entire life, earning roughly the same amount every month from sweating in the fields to growing vegetables. In 5 years, there'd be no way I'd be eating in a lame restaurant like this. Dude's an ass. That woman might be making fun of me now, but I'll bet I'd eventually be wearing a stylish suit and living in a high-rise apartment in Newton City. And of course, I was not going to stop there. That wasn't where my dream ended. It's where it began. If you're some rich actor, you might be able to bask in space on the opposite side of the moon with some beautiful woman by your side. But if you were one of the wealthiest here in this lunar city, you could go even further. You can make all the emotions and desires you feel when you look up at space come true. I ate the sweet and sour clump of IU jelly, and as I looked at my screen to choose the tree that would grow me money, I was immersed in a familiar daydream. This place was the forefront of humanity, a golden city of wealth and prosperity. I would run through the city's gates. I'd outwit the geniuses and prodigies from Earth to take my place there at last. I silently got myself worked up during this quiet early afternoon in a Chinese restaurant. I moved to touch my mouse back and forth, and just as I brought up the display for the prominent, even on the moon, investment bank E.J. Rochberg, customers entered the store. I thought it was strange that customers would come in at this hour and raised my head. At that moment, a feeling ran throughout my body like an ice cube had just been stuck up my asshole. Really? That's the imagery we're going for? Good lord. Okay, that's a problem.
Welcome.
2, please.
Yes, sir. Table for 2.
Oh, it's cops. That's not good. That's not good. The woman said this in her usual carefree voice, but the words barely entered my ear. I lowered my cap even further over my eyes and hunched over, trying to hide in the reflection of my PC display. Looking at their clothes, it was unmistakable. The pair who had just arrived at the table on the other side of the restaurant were police officers on patrol. I'll get the 10 Shindon. Same here.
Very well, 2 tension.
It seemed like they just chose this place randomly during their patrol, but who likes eating in the same restaurant as the cops? Not only that, I think those two were the ones who were at the Big Bull Cafe, according to my faint memory. The patrol route for the police didn't include going into cafes, so someone had to have tipped them off somehow. I was not some sort of invisible man, so someone surely must have seen me hanging around a weird place at a weird time. Whoever that someone was, if they told the police that there was a shady-looking kid around, there'd only be a handful of places they'd search. It was totally possible that those two were looking for me. That might also be the reason that the policeman facing me was glancing at me now and then. But to think that he'd take off and lead us on this wild goose chase. The policeman with his back to me suddenly spoke up. The cop looking at me waited a moment before replying to his partner. Well, it was just some big shots looking at maps all day who decided how wide our area of jurisdiction was to be. And there wasn't any public survey system in that area either. So I think that if he were hiding somewhere, it would have been in that net joint. The storekeeper there was a pretty sketchy looking guy, too. Maybe we should grab him and rough him up a little. Okay, so it's those types of cops. That's lovely. Don't judge by appearances. He ended up having a pretty impressive history, didn't he? Yeah, I guess. Man, should have studied harder at the academy. I never thought I'd be assigned to the boonies like this. Location has nothing to do with it. You just need to carry out your duties. You're very right about that. So they really were looking for someone. But the owner, that Serault guy, had an impressive history. I couldn't even begin to imagine. What do we do after this? If we go by the book, we'd start the usual thing with questioning people. His co-worker, facing me, took a sip of water and went quiet as if in thought. I got the feeling that he was taking a good hard look at me. In my mind, I was praying that they gave up on questioning and just went back to their nest. If we call in for reinforcements, we're just going to get laughed at. Looks like we've got no choice. Anyway, our duty is to keep public order. Cracks in public safety begin in the smallest of places, even if it is just one. Boy, we can't just let him get away. My heart felt like it might jump right out of my mouth. Now there was no mistake. They were tipped off by someone and they were out looking for me. Lunar cities were nuts about keeping public order. Even in the Red Valley there were suspicious guys wandering the streets. There was not even the faintest trace of any real danger. It was just a degenerate, pleasure-seeking town. Everyone knew just how risky committing an act of physical violence was in a place this small. After all, if you were deported by the residential management court, there'd be no question that you'd never be able to come back. The only people exempt from that form of punishment were people who were born on the moon. Even then, if you committed second-degree murder or worse, it was not so certain. Of course, I wouldn't be subject to the penal code just because I ran away from home, but the overall zeal for maintaining public order would mean that I'd be sent back home. After that, I'd probably be forced to report to a local facility every day until I became an adult. While that happened, I'd grow further and further away from the front line of the world and would eventually be swallowed up by the masses. I fixed my darting eyes on my hands and thought desperately, how should I escape from here? If I grabbed my PC and ran, the plug would get in the way. Do I unplug the adapter from my PC, then take off running with just the unit? My identity could be given away by the adapter, but it was still better than being captured. Or should I stay right here and wait for them to leave? I'd like to do that if it's possible, but that officer staring at me seemed like he was about to stand up and shout, "Hey you," to me at any moment. My cold sweat dripped onto my keyboard. Wait, that woman wouldn't have ratted me out, would she? As I thought of this possibility, I was tortured by a desperate rage, but suddenly, a shadow appeared on the table. It was that woman.
More water?
She poured me a refill. I cursed her in my heart, wishing that she wouldn't draw their attention towards me at a time like this, and my lowered face was totally flushed. But a piece of paper with words written on it was attached to the side of the cup she clunked down on the table. Get ready. I nearly raised my head, but the woman quickly left my table before I could make the mistake. I set my computer to mute and shut it down so that they didn't notice that my OS was no longer running. I'll give up on the adapter. I quietly pulled the cord out of the main unit and confirmed the location of my bag. I already used the money I always kept in my jacket pocket at the cafe, so I'll use what I had in my back pocket. There was a line in an old Earth Mafia movie that I saw at home that said that a $10 bill kept in your clothes was a business card to God. It certainly kept you well prepared. I quietly placed a 10 bill by my hand, perked up my ears and waited for the right timing. The policeman had been staring at me non-stop. He was definitely suspicious of me. With a clang, the policeman started to get up. Tension up. Yeah, no kidding, tension is up. At that very moment, the tension-on was placed on the counter loudly. Huh? What's wrong? The cop called out to his partner, who was now halfway out of his seat. Is it the guy behind me? Right after he said this, the woman's voice rang energetically throughout the room.
Thanks for waiting. Here's your tension-on.
Oh, yeah. The one with his back to me turned his attention back to the food. The other one was looking at me, but because the woman was standing next to his corner seat, he was stuck in his seat and couldn't get out. Now was the moment. It was my only chance. The payment's on the table. I said this as quietly as possible and left the 10 bill on the table. Hey, you, wait! The officer clearly told me to stop, but I just gave him a sideways glance as I walked quickly towards the exit. It was only a distance of 3 steps, but it felt like forever. The yelling officer attempted to chase after me, but with the woman in his way, he couldn't get out.
Kya!
The shrill scream came from the woman, who lost her balance after being pushed by the officer. Rude! She turned to the other officer, still sitting in his chair, and the piping hot Tenshindan looked like it was about to spill. Acting out of natural self-defense, the officer caught the bowl in his hands. By that time, I had successfully exited the store. I took off running as if nothing else in the world mattered. Where am I? I spoke to myself out loud to make sure that I wasn't in a dream. My throat was dry, though, so it was hard to speak. I cleared my throat a few times and took a deep breath. I hadn't the foggiest how I got here. After I left that store, I ran for my life toward the narrowest street I could find. I thought the police would be right behind me if I looked back, so I did nothing but run forward, not looking back a single time. After that, I must have found a handy-looking tunnel to hide in and then fallen asleep inside it. The pain throughout my body must have been from sleeping in the same position the entire time. Is this a sewer? In general, any place made out of the moon's unique limestone was a public facility. This place also had a cool, rough limestone floor as well as matching walls. Between that and the sound of running water, this place had to be a sewer. Right then, I noticed the slight glow around me. Is that from the exit? It seemed like I was nearly passed out, and while I had no idea how long I'd been asleep, it must be night by now. The fact that the lamps were lit made me certain of it. Slowly and carefully, I began to walk. Suddenly, the road turned into a dead end. I could see the light source on the other side of the wall that I now faced, which was even taller than me. I let out a quick gasp because it looked as though something on the ceiling had moved, but the only things there were strangely wavering lights and shadows. Like a small bug attracted to the light, I took my bag off and climbed the wall. Then, when I saw what was on the other side of the wall, I let out a much bigger gasp. Do we get an image? Ooh. Holy. Before me was a huge, spacious atrium. I was near the top part of the atrium, and I could see more passages on its opposite and right sides. However, the most amazing part was the waterway passing through the base of the atrium. Clear water flowed through it like gentle rapids, and most of the sound of water must have originated there. The bottom of the reservoir glowed a bluish color. Occasionally, a fish would move, and its shadow on the ceiling would swim as well. As I gazed at this scene, amazed that places like this existed on the moon, I suddenly heard a rustling sound behind me. The hell? As I turned back in surprise, I forgot that I was balancing on the top of a wall. I immediately lost my balance and fell on my butt. Ow! All of a sudden, I saw a pitch-black figure in front of me, rifling through my bag. What? Hey! Whoa, what are you doing? Not only had my life's wages and labor gone into that PC, but it also carried the 1 billion mool dream that I knew I was going to make a reality. My body moved before I even had time to think, and I tackled the figure. I threw myself at the shadow, covering its face with my left hand and aiming for its throat with my right. It was a technique that an immigrant from Earth taught me when I was growing up in a village full of muscleheads. It was an incredibly effective technique, and it had to be. It was used by someone who came from a place where a failed government was replaced by military forces who would seize the UN food supplies to be used as aid, and would toss it around as if it were feeding animals. Because I was looking at the light coming from the waterway, my eyes still weren't used to the darkness. The passage was narrow, though, so I couldn't miss. Not only that, but my opponent was way weaker than I had thought, tumbling over as I connected. Right at that moment, I saw a small, plank-like object fall onto the floor. The glowing object looked like it could be some sort of computer terminal. However, I was too busy thinking about punishing this idiot who was searching through my bag. On top of the bastard's body, who was either not resisting or too surprised to, I kept my grip on their throat and balled my other hand into the tightest fist I could make. Die! I froze, my fist still overhead. You look cranky. I raised my fist and was about to drop my iron hammer of fury. Oh, jeez, really? I began to speak. Woman? Smack. Right then, my vision went dark. I only realized that I had been punched in the nose after I was woken up by being shoved on the chest into the side wall of the passage.
Hitting me out of nowhere? What's wrong with you?
The pitch-black shadow, or rather, the pitch-black woman, began to speak. Black hair, black eyes, black clothes. Those eyes look red to me. Black skirt and black shoes, her ankles peeking out from the hem of her skirt were black too. Even her stockings were black. Dressed in black from top to bottom, her white face seemed to float in the darkness. She stared at me with her thin black eyes as if she was staring at a bug. My head was seething, both from the shock of being punched and my anger at the outrageous situation. What the hell? You're the one who was going through my bag. What's wrong with you?
That's not true. What would you do if this broke?
The girl looked around. Then while still sitting, she reached out her arms and grabbed the plank-like device that fell earlier. She brushed away the dirt and began to use it, probably to see if it still worked. But anyway, what kind of mentality would lead someone to verbally attack me after hitting me? This is why I hated women. Dude's an ass.
I'm just doing this because I was asked to. Why do I have to be subjected to this?
She seemed to mutter to herself. Disheveled from the fall, she gathered her long black hair into a bundle of darkness in one hand, straightened it neatly in an instant. It looked like a cable harness.
Found him. Hurry up and get here. I'm in the side passage on the top level.
Still seated, the girl began to talk. That thing might also work as a communication device. Who in the world is she? Was she searching for me? Or was she interested in what I was carrying? If that were the case, then I wouldn't hold back. Thankfully, I was in a dark, deserted, and hard-to-see place. I might have lost a fight just now, but if I went at her with all my strength, I knew I could win. Maybe I should take some naked pictures of her and post them online. Once I was done. What the fuck is wrong with you? With that in mind, her arrogant attitude and expression might come in handy. How are we supposed to, associate with this character when he is an ass? Good lord. Right as I went to move my back off the wall, I heard a voice.
I hear you. Wait 1 minute. The floor is getting complicated around here.
As soon as I heard the voice, I felt the dark urge in my chest disappear. I had heard that voice before. It was the voice of the woman from the Chinese restaurant who allowed me to escape.
What? Hurry up, Lisa!
I don't know who's talking to whom. The girl spoke curtly into the terminal.
I feel like I'm losing brain cells just being around this guy.
I was dumbfounded for a moment and then glared at the girl. Huh? The girl glanced at me, then quickly turned away. She acted as if she had heard a stray dog barking outside her window. She was clearly acting in the intolerable way that only women can, making it seem as though no insult or abuse hurled her way could possibly affect her. While I was the type to get really angry when something I say is ignored, I was not even enough of an adult to suppress my irritation. I kept glaring at her, not caring how lame I might be looking. Still glaring at her, I pulled my bag towards me and made sure that nothing had been taken out. Nothing seemed wrong. Only there seemed to be something like a piece of dried macaroni at the bottom of my bag. It was partially metallic, and a small green, rice-sized light was flickering on and off. Around the time that I figured out that was a homing device much like one you'd use on a pet dog, I heard footsteps from the other side of the passage. The woman who appeared shortly after was unmistakably the one from the Chinese restaurant. While she was irritating, she also saved me. So this was Lisa.
Phew, finally found you. I told you reception is bad around here.
The girl in black replied.
But I found you. It took a little while, though.
The woman wiped her forehead, which made her finally realize that her hair was a mess.
I'm amazed that you got all the way to a place like this. Were you here the whole time?
While the woman talked, she took the flat device from the sitting girl. After inputting a few commands, the macaroni-shaped light in my hand stopped blinking and turned yellow. Is this a tracking device? Not answering the woman's question, I asked one back.
Yep, I put it in there when you were bending over to plug your adapter in. You were busy being charmed by my legs, so it was easy to do.
I wasn't charmed by anything. I shot back. This only caused the seated black-clad girl to shoot me a disdainful look over her shoulder.
Well, I apologize for putting a homing device in your bag without asking. No matter what the reason, it isn't a nice thing to have happen to you.
Her easily offered apology left me no room to complain. Only there was no way that someone who put a tracking device in someone else's bag could be an upstanding person. Considering this, I started to feel like her saving me at the restaurant might have been due to some ulterior motive. In any case, I was in the back corner of a deserted sewer. What I had just thought of doing in my rage to the annoying girl in black might now be done to me. And you deserve it. You see, geniuses and the rich were gathered in the lunar cities, and most of them could be called extremely talented. However, they often said that the line between brilliance and madness was paper thin. There was no shortage of stories along the lines of mad scientists performing unspeakable experiments on a nightly basis, or of wealthy perverts committing sickening acts, one after another. I looked up at the woman, the shaking reflection from the water dimly reflecting upon her face, and grabbed my bag with one hand. I was careful enough to spread my money across different pockets, so of course I carried at least a small weapon. But regardless of gender, the woman over there was taller than me. Gravity was weak on the moon, so if you thought about it as simple action-reaction, there wasn't much difference here between a man and a woman's punches and kicks. In that case, it came down to either wrestling or stiffening your body in one place and slamming it into your opponent while conserving as much physical energy as possible. That was where the length of your limbs made a difference. Not only that, there was someone right next to me who most certainly wasn't on my side. I recalled the atrium I had just looked into. With my leg strength, couldn't I jump over the wall all the way over to the other side? Or, if I made sure to land in the water, wouldn't I be okay? While my mind was whirring through the possibilities, I gulped and said the following. Why are you doing this? Was your saving me a trap? I wasn't sure if I should say that much, but before I could make a decision, the woman spoke first. The woman smiled, as if she was stumped, and bent her head to the side. She then continued,
For fun?
My back stiffened with a shudder. I had the feeling that I was going to be killed. You've got to be kidding me. I still had dreams, and I'd just barely gotten to the starting line. I stood up and suddenly put all of my strength into my thigh muscles. She spoke right as my body began to fly up.
But I mean, you wouldn't want to get falsely arrested, right?
Unable to drain all the strength in my thighs, my body floated as I hopped lightly backwards. With a slow, gentle trajectory, my back tapped against the wall. Wait, wrongly arrested?
That's right. Those two officers were chasing after a boy, age 15 to 17, height around 160 centimeters, slender, black hair, black eyes, Asian features, wearing a black backpack. But isn't that him?
The girl in black replied to this description.
That's what I thought too. but after talking to them some more, I realized that it was someone else.
I was slightly confused. When did I get asked that? That woman had known for a long time that I was a runaway. I'd been going in and out of that restaurant for a while, and I had met her a number of times. Running away from home as a minor was technically against the law. While it was not something you'd be punished for, it was assumed that public order would be deteriorated by jobless, penniless minors wandering the streets, and so they're cracked down on. That's why the woman's words didn't make sense to me. Confused and with my back still against the wall, I heard the woman let out a small sigh and continue to talk.
Those two officers weren't looking for just some runaway kid, they were after a thief.
Thief?
That's right, but well, considering his MO and the circumstances, I could see how someone like you could be a suspect.
Hearing this, I was reminded of how persistent the woman was when it came to the most random things. And that's why you wouldn't stop asking me whether or not I had lunch.
Exactly. The other day, someone stiffed a nearby restaurant on the bill. According to eyewitnesses, the suspect looked just like you, as usual. But well, I didn't think that someone who would order IU jelly with a carefree, satisfied expression on his face right after gobbling up a crab fried rice would do something like that, you know?
The woman giggled as she said this. Slightly miffed, I glared back at her. I wouldn't do something dirty like that over something like 10 mules.
Of course not. I checked with Sir Walt, too. Oh, and I made sure to hold on to your change and your adapter.
That made me feel a little relieved. The adapter was especially important. If you were smart enough, you could do just about anything with an electric appliance, so most purchases required showing personal identification. If my adapter were to get returned the police as a lost article, they'd figure out my identity in a snap. I heard that on Earth, even a child could anonymously buy parts that could easily be made into a cutting-edge missile. Now that was a scary place.
So, well, that's what's going on. You should come back to my place.
Wait, what? I honestly could not understand what she was saying. What?
Are you thinking of going back to that cafe? I asked Sir Walt and he said that 4 stern-looking guys are taking turns patrolling the place.
It was not a result that was hard to predict. Only, if that's the case, then I'd be back to sleeping on the hard ground of some deserted area. To be honest, doing that took a big toll on my body. Not being able to get a calm night's sleep was the worst part about this police patrol. As far as getting sleep, the Big Bull Cafe had a roof and running water. And if you said that you wanted to pay the premium fee, you'd get the sense of security that came with knowing that you'd be alerted if something dangerous started to go down. The question was whether or not that's a reason to just jump on an invitation from some suspicious person, a woman, who put tracking devices in people's bags for fun. Even in stock trading, a too-good-to-be-true balance sheet was sometimes used to prime the pump right before a huge crash.
I understand why you might be suspicious, but I just told you, right? It's like a hobby for me.
The woman told me this as I remained doubtful. Bringing runaways like me into your home was your hobby? She's either a pervert with some bizarre hobbies, or could it be my charm? It's not your charm. I can guarantee you that, buddy.
I think I basically know what you're thinking, but...
The woman then laughed in amazement.
Unfortunately for you, boys younger than me aren't my thing. Unless they're holding giant, blood-soaked scissors.
Wait, what? Well, then what? What are you after? Is it my money? As soon as I said these words, the smile disappeared from the woman's eyes. Did she get mad? Just from that? While I had the feeling that I had already said a lot of other things that should have made her angry, I was still surprised at the sudden change. Watching my face, the woman must have realized the change in her own expression.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
She spoke in a forced tone, then rubbed the area around her eyes gently with both hands. This completely disarmed and confused me. Not only that, I was faced with the grim reality of not having any place to go. The woman in front of me allowed me to escape from the restaurant, so in that sense I owed her a lot. I then concluded that aside from the part about being a runaway, I did consider myself a decent human being, so I should probably reply with something like this. If I do end up being a burden on you, I won't be able to pay much, you know? While I had realized that she wasn't especially interested in my money, I still had enough decency to feel bad about not paying someone who took care of me. That's why I said what I said, but would she understand? As I kept staring at the woman, she finally grinned and nodded.
Of course. I'll take a little for food and other costs, but it should still be a lot better than wandering around outside. Oh, and...
the woman continued.
After all, I took care of Saralt, too.
Huh?
Nothing you should worry about. So what will you do?
There was nothing else I could do. There was only one way I could answer. Thanks.
You should be more honest and just say that from the beginning.
The woman continued to smile as she said that, but I told her in my head to be more reasonable.
Okay then, let's go back. If it gets much later, I won't have a good excuse to give to the police.
Hearing the word police, I nodded, once again recognizing the precarious situation I was in. However, while both the women and I tried to set off, there was someone who wouldn't budge an inch. It was the girl dressed in black. While I wasn't sure if she was listening to my conversation with the woman or not, she had an absent-minded look on her face.
What are you doing?
The woman asked. It was a very pertinent question. The girl, still not answering, turned her head and stared my way. Her utterly conceited expression immediately reminded me of the irritating argument I'd just had with her. What? I said this to her with a voice full of anger. I knew that my remark would be ignored or snubbed, but she was being so upsetting that it just came out that way. As I expected, the girl then turned away snootily, with all the annoying elegance of some sort of princess.
Hagana, you're not trying to throw a tantrum like some child, are you?
The woman used the name Hagana to refer to the girl. Still snootily turned away, the girl called Hagana gave no reply. With this, I was roughly able to guess what was going on. The woman inviting me to her house most likely meant that I would be living under the same roof as this obnoxious girl named Hagana. Naturally, I was upset that I'd be openly rejected by her, but taking a step back, I suppose I could understand how Hagana felt. This put me at a bit of a loss. Should I get angry, or should I respond like an adult? Only, this wasn't the time or place to dawdle. But I was about to say that I didn't mind even sleeping in the garden. She spoke first.
I can't stand up. What?
Hagana looked up at the woman who replied to her and continued.
I can't put any strength in my hips. It's because he tackled me.
Hagana looked at me as she said this. The woman looked at me.
You tackled her?
Really? I vaguely recall something like this happening in kindergarten or elementary school. Teacher, so-and-so's tackled someone or another. But I was not one to use violence without a reason. If the girl in black looked over in response to a sound and saw someone searching through her own bag, wouldn't she have done the same thing? Right as I went to say this, I'm faced with the fact that I tackled a delicate girl and began to realize that I had done something that was hard to make an excuse for. Women are such unfair creatures. I cursed the black-clad and white-skinned Hagana as a shrewd tactician.
I guess so.
Wait, no, but...
But, well, I can imagine the situation. In that case, in a fight, both parties are to blame.
The woman said this, then pointed at Hagana. Hagana looked at the tip of the finger as if it were covered in some kind of sweet syrup.
If you can't walk, then have him carry you on his back.
Wait, what? The woman pointed her finger towards me. Still attracted by the finger, Hagana's gaze shifted to me. Wait, how is that punishment for the both of us? That doesn't make sense. While I protested, the woman raised her eyebrows ever so slightly as if to insist that I listen to her. This was blatant favoritism, I thought. After all, the person that she's saying has to be carried must also... I began to think, then realized... in a fight, both parties were to blame.
Okay, hurry up if you understand.
This wasn't just any ordinary woman. Hagana also made a face as though she had come to some sort of realization, then nodded. I sighed, put my bag on my front side, and walked up towards Hagana. She was sitting down, so her face was in a somewhat erotic position. Hagana hadn't made particularly expressive faces to begin with and stared up at me motionlessly. Sadistic desires began to well up in me, thinking that I'd feel a lot better if I slapped the side of her face as hard as I could. You are an ass. However, I felt as though if I dwelt on those thoughts for too long, I might actually slap her. So I quickly crouched down and turned my back to her. I wasn't sure how long it'd take, but living under the same roof as her seemed like it'd be a pain, at least until the friction between us settled down. I should avoid any potential points of conflict.
Come on, Hagana, turn your arms. That's right.
I tried to give Hagana, who seemed to be telling the truth about not being able to stand, a hand in climbing on my back. Hagana's thin arms wrapped around my neck and then stiffened awkwardly. Actually, it seemed like this girl had never climbed on someone's back.
Hagana, you're not going to be dangling from his neck. You're getting on his back.
The woman explained, and after a bit of silence, Hagana shifted her body onto my back. Finally, two small but soft objects touched my back. As I was responsible for carrying her, I wrapped my hands around the bottom of Hagana's thighs. I was filled with a strange thought. So this is what legs in stockings feels like. Not touching that one. Shit, it's not bad. Okay, stand. Another part of me nearly rose as well, but with a quick start, I put my strength into my two legs. I hadn't been skipping my resistance training, so I could easily carry up to around 5 times my weight. One slender girl was practically nothing to me.
Oh, you're stronger than I thought.
The praise didn't feel too bad.
All right, then, let's go.
The woman began to walk. I tried to follow behind her, but Hagana stopped me.
Wait.
The woman turned back and we both looked at Hagana's face. Hers was right next to mine. Suddenly, I smelled something sweet and fruit-like for a moment.
What is it?
As the woman replied, Hagana raised her head a little while still on my back and replied quietly,
He really stinks.
The woman looked blankly at Hagana, then at me. A strange, cheerful smile began to appear on her face.
In a fight, both parties are to blame.
I'm going to make her bow down to me one day. Alright, I'm going to cut it off there. I was kind of hoping that there'd be a more prominent transition. I'm not sure when one's coming up, but we've already hit about 50 minutes, so thank you for joining me for episode 2 of World End Economica. Met a couple more characters. So it looks like we're not going back to the Bull Cafe anytime soon. And Lisa is a little more devious than we expected. And now we have Hagana. I'm curious to see where this plot is going. I'm kind of hoping that neither of those are going to be a love interest, because at the moment, Yoshi is a douche. I do not like him. So, we'll see where it goes, but thank you for joining me. Check out some of the other game breaks that we're doing, from like BioShock currently to some horror games like Neverending Nightmare, some Sky Roads, all sorts of fun stuff. But until next time, get back to being creative already. Answered, then turned back to my screen. I updated my data while I was in the cafe, so I searched for any corporate news that might affect the market in the next few days.
From where?
As I clicked my tongue, the woman's smile, as expected, disappeared. She didn't get mad or stand up, though.
That doesn't suit you, you know.
She said this so seriously that instead of getting mad, I ended up blushing. She's treating me like a complete child. Well, you're acting like a complete ass, so... Big Bull Cafe. It was an arrogantly named place for a nearly illegal operation. You see, bulls were symbols of strong markets. For that reason, there are bronze bulls placed in front of the biggest financial districts in the world, like America's Wall Street or the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Are there any moon bulls? So for me, the place was good luck.
Huh, so Siralt's handmade pasta.
Siralt?
Wasn't there a real skinny guy there? That guy owns the place.
Owns the... I was a little heartbroken at those words. I was sure that he was some loser who worked there by the hour, but to be the owner of a store, big or small, was a fine example of a capitalist. Not only that, I was heartbroken to hear that I was eating his pasta. I mean, it was good.
I taught him how to make those.
The woman beamed with pride. Wait, if she taught him... Even so, it was too late to leave, so I entered the store with a heavy gait and set up camp in a corner seat. While mountains of hydrocarbons sat at the moon's poles, they still couldn't be used for luxuries such as making plastic. Come on. As a result, most of the store's equipment was made from either wood or iron. Both could be gathered on the moon and were easily decomposable by microbes when thrown away. An iron cup was placed with a clang on my tattered wooden table, which was no doubt found in a dump somewhere. I don't know, the table in the image looks pretty nice to me, but I don't know, maybe you're not sitting at that one. The woman, beaming, then poured me water from high up. The water seemed like it should splash out, but it all stayed in the now perfectly filled cup.
You showed up, you delinquent.
I have no idea what voice this person's gonna be. Oh god, it's pink hair. She's gonna be regular, isn't she? Oh no. Oh, I should be prepared for this. Crab omelet over fried rice. Ooh, that sounds good. I made my order bluntly, without a proper reply. The woman was about 20 years old and had bright, healthy hair. She had been working here for a while and seemed to know a lot of the customers, so she probably lived in the area. "1 crab fried!" The woman yelled cheerfully towards the kitchen. Then of all the things she could have done, she sat down across from me. Greetings and salutations, ladies and menfolk. Welcome to another episode of Game Break, a full coverage writer's endeavor where me and my crew take a break from our various creative endeavors and play some video games and check out some other people's stories and characters and creations. Coming to you today with another episode of World and Economica. Last time round, we met our main character, Yoshiharu, whatever his last name is, and got all the way to a Chinese restaurant. So, I'm curious to see just what the story is going to be from here. Is he going to become rich and famous and take over the moon, or not? Let's find out. As I opened the frosted glass door, the woman, watching the television placed near the ceiling with her head resting in her arms, propped up on the counter, lowered her glance listlessly. While I was overcome with the urge to just shut the door and go to another store, the woman raised her voice before I got the chance.
Table for one?
The kitchen was run by the silent, stubborn, elderly husband of the family, so he never showed any signs of affection, of course. No reply came from the kitchen. Did the lights go out? I silently took out my adapter and plugged it into the cord that the woman, still seated, had lazily dragged my way with her foot. As I hugged the ground in order to plug my adapter into the outlet, the woman mischievously twitched the toes in her sandals. She is going to be one of the main characters. It's inevitable. There's no way you're going to get this type of descriptions and just have it be a one-off.
Perv!
Wait, what? That's what she said to me once I raised my head, but she wasn't even wearing a skirt. Okay. Naturally, I ignored it and booted up my PC. After that, the woman stopped messing with me, and the only sounds in the restaurant were the filtered voices from the television and the swinging pots in the kitchen. This was a quiet area, without much foot traffic, and it felt like time passed slowly here. The thing that made me go far out of my way to come here, other than the fact that they wouldn't report me to the cops, was the tranquility.
What did you eat yesterday?
Well, it was pretty tranquil until the woman suddenly asked me a question. What did what I had to eat yesterday have anything to do with you? I ignored her as I stared at my screen, but she wouldn't stop looking at me. Her face, visible from the corner of my eye, didn't make it look like she was particularly interested in the question, but she wouldn't turn away. Defeated, I raised my glance, and at that moment she grinned. Pasta. Except her body was off to the side, and her vision was fixed on the TV. She seemed interested in some plot point in the drama she was watching.
I heard that actor there is in the area right now. He's going to negotiate his next title and bask in space at the same time. A beautiful actress from around here is accompanying him.
You don't say. I didn't ask, but she informed me anyway. I ended up glancing at the screen as I silently took my PC out of my bag.
He's a little too handsome, though.
While that might be true, I stifled my urge to reply with a "so what?" as I placed my PC on the table and switched it on. The PC was loaded up with financial information and charts of historical prices for the 4,000 stocks on the Lunar Stock Exchange. That's a lot of stocks. In order to make a profit tomorrow, I had to find my next target.
Oh, want to use our power?
I raised my glance after being asked a question and found my eyes meeting the woman's. She had beautiful almond-shaped eyes that were even brighter in color than her hair. She's gonna be a main character, or not an antagonist, hopefully, but yeah, we're gonna see a lot of her. If you get descriptions like this, you're gonna see a lot of her. She must have led an easy life, I thought to myself. You're probably wrong, simply because that's your first impression. Nevertheless, it'd be helpful if I could use the restaurant's electricity. Even if I did decide to go back to that half-assed net cafe, the rates were cheaper at night. The problem was that my battery might not last until then.